Hello and welcome to tonight's Sleep When I'm Dead Book Club live show. I am here with Ashley from Ashley's Little Library. And then I did comment this down below. We're going to go through some questions about the book. So feel free to comment down below so we can get everyone's input. But in case anyone is new to the live shows, this is my online book club on my channel where we talk about backlist thrillers and things of that nature. And I'm so happy to have Ashley here as a co-host for the month. Ashley, would you like to do a little introduction of yourself?
Sure. So I am Ashley. My channel name on YouTube is Ashley's Little Library. I'm over on Bookstagram as well with the same name and a little bit of book talk whenever I feel like going on there sometimes. But I mostly read thrillers for the most part, horror, and then a little bit of like romance every now and then. I don't know. I just throw some random things in there every once in a while. But yeah, I read the spooky stuff for the most part.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of similar tastes as far as like genres and stuff. And I feel like you typically find books that I've either never heard of, or you'll talk about books that I like pass over. I'm like, oh, okay, if Ashley liked this or she's reading this, I should probably pick it up. So
Yeah, I just stumble across the random things sometimes. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, I'll pick it up. It sounds interesting.
yeah. There's a lot of books like the Latecomers and like Good Rich People. I was like, I feel like I should read this. And like I picked up The Island because you mentioned it. So that's gonna be on my June TBR. But yeah. So comment down below, say hello everyone, and then we'll jump into the book club discussion. Kim did not read the book, but she's always the first one here to hang out and support.
I love it.
Uh, hello. Hey Jordan, can't wait for the discussion. I read the book and really enjoyed it. Nice. Hey Gwen. I feel like we're going to say Gwen a lot through this whole live show because
Oh yeah, because the character's
the
name was
main
Gwen.
character's name is Gwen. And Gwen's in the chat, so hopefully it won't get too confusing. I didn't read the book. That's fine. Deciding if she should pick it up. That's totally fine. Thank you everyone for joining. Your hair looks shorter apparently. Did you cut
It
it?
is. I
Oh,
did. I took a couple inches off the other day.
nice. It looks good.
Thanks.
Kim likes A.R. Torre. Have y'all read any other books by this author? Yeah, we'll get into that one because that is on our list of questions. Whoa, lots of comments just flooded my screen. Happy Thursday, everyone. Of course, read the book and loved it. Nice. Another one loved the book. Happy almost long weekend. I'm so excited for the weekend, but it's my sister's bachelorette party, and I'm like so over this damn wedding. It's ridiculous, but
you're gonna need the extra day to recover.
Yeah, and it's the thrill to the weekend, so I don't know when I'm going to be reading in, but hopefully I can. Hi, I'm only 30 pages into the book, but here for the show anyways. Oh, okay. Interesting. Read the first two books of the Girl in 6E trilogy. I haven't read that. Have you? You haven't? Okay. Hello. 4 stars. Really enjoyed it. Nice. Actually, like this book more than I thought I would. Interesting.
Happy birthday, Amber. It's Amber's birthday today.
Oh, everyone say happy birthday to Amber. Happy birthday. Hi there. Read the book. I thought it was a big hot mess, but I still like it. I feel like hot messes can be a really positive thing sometimes, but just depends, I guess. Hi, first time joining. Love the book and devoured it in 2 days. Nice. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining. Happy birthday, Amber. Okay. So typically on my book club discussions, I have games. But because I am the biggest procrastinator, I did not come up with any games. So Ashley is probably relieved that I won't torture her live in front of everyone. More birthday wishes. Nice. So we'll just go ahead and jump into the book discussion. The first section is going to be non-spoiler. We'll let everyone know who hasn't read the book and is wanting to read the book when we get into spoilers. But yeah. But one thing I particularly, well, I guess before we get into that question, do you want to kind of explain the book synopsis, like what the book is about for everyone?
Sure. So this is a book that is a serial killer thriller. So there's this guy going around called the bloody heart killer. Is that what they call him?
Mhm.
The bloody heart killer.
Yeah.
And he has abducted like six teenage boys. I just say he because they just assume it's a man. No
Mhm.
spoilers into gender in that way. Um, Abducting teenage boys and then ends up keeping them for like 2 months and then kills them. And a psychiatrist who specializes in serial killers is going to be working with a DA who, district attorney, who his son was one of the victims, and they come together to try to create a psychological profile for who the serial killer could be. After one of the teens makes an escape from the killer, it's the first teen to ever escape, and he accuses a person of being the killer. The DA, who is the dad of one of the sons who was a victim of that, doesn't believe that that's the real killer. And so he wants to defend that case, work with a psychiatrist, and figure out who the real killer is.
Nice. Yeah. Perfect summary. Definitely sounds intriguing. I know when you picked the book, I was like, ooh, this actually, I've heard of this book, but I haven't really heard too much about it. It actually sounds right up my alley because I don't know. I really like serial killers. That's just me. I mean, it's a shame of what they do, but
Yeah,
um,
they're interesting.
yeah. I mean, it's always interesting to like read about, I guess, mindsets and like what leads people to do stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, But one thing I like to do on my book club discussions is I actually like to have my co-host pick the book. So my first question is, Ashley, why did you pick this book out of the ones you sent me?
Yeah, so I was just really interested in reading from A.R. Torre. I've been really interested. I don't know if that's even how you say her name. That's how I say A.R.
Yeah.
Torre. But I've been really interested for a long time. I've kind of seen her name float around. And then I realized a couple months ago that she also has written a lot of like steamy romances under the name Alessandra Torre. So she's got like this steamy romance past and then these like dark thrillers that people have been reading and enjoying. So I really just wanted to try her out as an author. And this one, The Good Lie, is the one that I've seen the most positive reviews for from people that I typically look to for reviews. So thought it'd be a good place to start out.
Yeah. And actually, when I was doing a little bit of research before typing up everything in my notes and stuff like that, I think she also has another name called Lissa Torre or
Oh, I didn't
or
even know about that.
well, it was actually a link to her site. It looks like a cutesy young adult name, but it's
Hmm.
looks like Alessandra, but without the A. It just starts with an L. But
Oh,
it was
hmm.
like tripping on the halo or something. It was like a free book or something like that. Like I guess you can read digitally. Didn't really look anything up my alley, but apparently she's got multiple different names. Um, but nice. I'm glad you picked this one. It had been on my radar for a while, so got me to read it. So perfect. Um, but like you had mentioned, have you read anything else by this author? And everyone else, please comment down below if you've read anything. But I can't remember if you had already mentioned if you've read anything by them.
Mm-mm, I haven't. No, I've seen The Girl in 6E be talked about a lot too, and that's another one that's on my radar. But yeah, I haven't read from her before. Have you read anything from her?
I did read The Ghostwriter. Um,
Mm.
it was actually gifted to me. I guess it was on my Amazon wish list and it was gifted to me last year for my birthday. But I had put it on my wish list because on Book Talk or TikTok or whatever, people were comparing it to Verity, and I love Verity by Colleen Hoover.
Oh,
And I personally didn't like it. I thought it was just okay. I think the comparison kind of ruined my rating for it.
yeah.
So I don't know. I think I just went in under the wrong mindset of that book, so that's why it wasn't that great for me. But are there any other books that you're interested in picking up by this author?
The only other one that I know The Girl in 6E is like a series, which also makes me kind of nervous because I never read thriller series.
Me
I
neither.
don't know if I've really ever read, other than like the Never Never series that Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher did a million years ago. But I do want to read The Girl in 6E. And then the other one that I know is the one that's Every Last Secret, I think. It's like a ocean kind of cover, but I've heard terrible things about that one. So I don't think I would pick that one up.
Yeah, I've seen that one going around. I've heard mixed things about that. But then also someone mentioned her newest book that's coming out. I think someone in my reading sprints had mentioned it, A Familiar Stranger. I guess comes out later this year, but that one sounds pretty interesting. I forgot what the synopsis is, but
Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. I'll
yeah,
have to
and
look
the
it up.
cover's really pretty. It's like got another beach scene. I guess that's her thing now. um, all right, let's see what everyone else has said. Jordan said no, but she owns The Girl in 6E, The Girl in 6E trilogy, and Every Last Secret. This was their first and would read more. No, but how can I find the book club books for the next books? I do have a video. Well, the video is just the June one. So I'm actually going to film a June, July, and August one, and then also possibly a upcoming surprise. So I will definitely let you guys know about that. But you can find it on my channel for all the previous books or the future books. I read Every Last Secret right after I read this one, and it was just not the same caliber at all. Yeah. Is that the one you were talking about? Okay.
Yeah. I've heard that's like there's just a bunch of annoying people in it, that people don't like the characters is the main complaint that I hear.
Oh. Interesting. Okay. Girl in 60 about 5 years ago. It was a 3-star for me. 4 stars, and Every Secret was 2 stars. Interesting. Not very good. Loved the trilogy. Okay. So the next question I have, which I think is the most interesting question I ask, is if you could describe the book in 3 words, how would you describe it?
I would say dark for one. It's a pretty dark serial killer. There's a lot of talk about the abduction and the gruesome things that happen. So definitely dark. Tense also, I think, is one that I would say. Like the whole time there's just this tension that you feel because one, you don't know who is guilty. So I feel like there's a lot of just like discomfort there and trying to figure out who's doing what. And it just really builds a good tension throughout the plot. And then I would also say like fast or dynamic. I feel like there's a lot that happens and it happens pretty quickly. The book's only like a little over 200 pages. It's pretty small, but it feels like a complete novel. So
yeah. Great words. I put quick as well. I feel like this was a very fast-paced book for me. I think it's 244 pages is what I found in my book. I also put compelling because I definitely feel like there's a lot of different components in the book that keep you engaged in multiple different areas. And I also put gruesome. Like you said, it's pretty dark with what happens with the kidnappings and things like that. It's kind of horrific is the best word I can put.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So for anyone that is looking for something similar to this, do you have any other books that you would recommend based on this one?
I do. I made kind of a long list of things that I was thinking of, books that are sort of similar. The first one is a book that I didn't really like, but it was like marketed incorrectly, in my opinion. The Overnight Guest by Heather Gudenkoff, which has like similar kind of crime vibes, multiple timelines and POVs. There's a murder. It just feels like a similar kind of crime thriller. And then The Golden Couple by Sarah Pekkanen and Greer Hendricks, another book I didn't really love, but that has like a morally gray therapist angle, which is a lot of what this book is about.
Okay.
And then Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, also kind of similar. That one's definitely more intense in my opinion, but similar kind of vibes to that. And then also Goodnight Beautiful by Amy, I always say Malloy, but I think you say it Molly, which also has like a therapist thriller element to it as well.
Yeah. Those are some really good comparisons. I think like Pretty Girls is probably the biggest comparison, I would say. And I didn't even think about that until you just said it. So I kind of broke my recommendations up. So for like the legal part of the books, because you do see dynamics between like the psychological and the legal parts. But I have Mine by J.L. Butler. It's more of a domestic legal thriller set in the UK. I really like it. Don't really hear anyone else talking about it, so it made me think of that one. And then with legal and romance, I said The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. So if you're looking for something more that romantic suspense thriller, I would recommend that one. It's one of my favorites. And then for the psychology part, I would suggest The Silent Patient. I feel like that's not that great of a recommendation based on this book, but it was the first.
I can see that.
You can. Well, yeah, because I mean, you've got the main character who is in that field of work and studying someone. So those were the best ones, but I feel like yours were slightly better than mine.
No, I like yours too. And I haven't heard of the first one you said. And then the Geneva Rose one is one that I've been interested in picking up too. So it's good to know.
I love that one. Here's a good question. Did you listen to it physically or physically read it?
I read it physically, completely.
Completely. I mostly listened to it on audio, but I did pick it up physically to refer to when I wasn't doing other things like cleaning or puzzles and stuff like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Love the fast-paced books that you can burn through fast and still feel like you're getting a complete story. Yeah, I agree. Read it physically and still flew through it that way. Sorry, I cannot read today.
Yeah, I did too. I think I read it in like 2 sittings.
Yeah, I read 2 large chunks. They were on 2 separate days, but were the majority. I did a puzzle during like live reading sprints, which I haven't put away. And then I think I was doing a lot of cleaning around the house, and that was the second biggest chunk. So it's definitely bingeable. And it's very short, like we've said. So before we go into spoilers, I always like to mention if anyone is ever curious about this, but are there any trigger warnings that you feel are important to mention for anyone that hasn't read the book yet?
Yeah, I feel like I'm really bad with trigger warnings because if it's not something that bothers me, I forget it happened. So I probably don't have the most extensive list. But generally, I would just say like sexual assault, sexual violence is a pretty big part. Kidnapping of teenage boys. And then also, I'm personally kind of sensitive to mental health representation in books. So because this is a psychiatrist that is working on something, if you're like super going to pay attention to that and something might bother you, then maybe that would be the case. There wasn't anything that particularly bothered me, but there's like discussion around personality disorders and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm not usually as triggered or sensitive in most areas. But I mean, you basically nailed them. Kidnapping, rape, sexual abuse, physical, mental abuse, things like that. And so I don't think there's any other triggers that were mentioned. But again, I'm not the best at trigger warnings. And then my last question before we jump into spoilers is, what is your star rating?
I think I am going to give it a 4-star.
Okay. Nice. I am stuck. I think overall my enjoyment was a 4-star, but I also feel like 4 stars is too high. I feel like 3.5 stars is too high. I also feel like it's too low. So a 3-star, like, I think I'm going to give it 4 stars because it is something I would recommend, but there are a few things that we'll mention, going forward and stuff like that. So if everyone else wants to comment your star rating, if you hadn't already, definitely do that in the comments. But we will jump into spoilers. So if you haven't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, now is your chance to exit, come back after you read it. We would love to share everything we have. So here's your final warning before we jump into spoilers. And someone's texting me. Let's see. Read it over 2 days. 4 stars. Okay, Ashley. 4 stars for me. 3 stars. 3.5. My rating is also 4 stars.
These are good ratings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's not like a really terrible book that everyone's just gonna diss on.
Yeah.
4.5 at the most. Just had a really good time reading it. spoil it up. You're so okay. Let me flip over. I don't know why people are texting me. Okay. So, based on the first chapter, I feel like it can really set the tone for the book and it says a lot about the book. So, just solely based on the first chapter, we're introduced to the first victim to ever escape the Bloody Heart Killer, and we're introduced to his family. How would you describe the first chapter? Did it hook you, or did it do anything for you? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think it was a really solid first chapter, especially because when we were picking this book for the book club, it was like months ago, I feel like at this point,
Yeah.
and so I forgot the synopsis, and I purposefully didn't reread the synopsis before picking the book up, especially because it's a shorter book. I just didn't really want to remember anything about it going in. I knew there was like a serial killer and a psychiatrist. That's all I really remembered. And so starting the book with that first chapter, and it's this like kid escaping a killer, and then immediately you go into the second chapter and you're completely removed from that, and you go to Gwen, the psychiatrist perspective, and she's talking about like a client she has and what's going on in her world. That pulled me a lot because I was like, how are these things going to connect? Like, who's going to be involved in what was that thing I just saw happen with this kid?
Mhm.
So yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good
Yeah.
intro.
I thought the first chapter was okay. It definitely gives you enough information about the book or about what's being set up without being too much info dumpy, kind of like
Hmm.
some other books are. I felt like it had enough to give you like a backstory that something's wrong, things like that. So I felt like it was a good solid chapter. I wouldn't say it's like a jaw dropping, like last sentence of the chapter, but I would say it's a pretty decent chapter.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd
that
agree.
was smart to not reread the synopsis, like, because I didn't do that. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what's
Yep.
happening.
I try to forget everything about thrillers before going in. So I'm just like, oh, what's happening? I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I feel like when I pick up thrillers, like if I'm not really getting like what's happening or what the point of the story is, I'll like reread the synopsis. I'm like, okay, this is what I should be expecting. And sometimes that ruins it for me. But
Yeah, I used to do that too, and I stopped doing that because it would ruin things for me. I'm like, I just let myself be confused now, and I'm like, we'll figure it out by page 50, I'm sure.
that's I should start doing that more. Um, 5 stars, that's awesome. I was listening to the book and back and forth and listen to the beginning again to understand it at first. Yeah, we'll get into that too. Written for you. That's awesome. I'm the same, Jess. It was a 4 star, but I never see many issues with the believability and weird choices the characters made. I agree. Okay. So as far as pacing throughout the book, would you say it was fast paced? Did it keep you engaged throughout the book? Were there any slow parts? Things like that.
Yeah, I think generally the pacing was pretty good for me. I think kind of towards the end, it gets into a little bit of what typically happens in the shift between like the second act and the third act, where you're kind of waiting for that last thing to happen to get the end going. It gets a little bit where you're like, okay, is this guy the bad guy or is she the bad guy? Are you going to hook up or not? Like, let's just
Yeah.
make some decisions and make some things happen there. But overall, with like the mystery element of it and how you have the separate POVs where you're like, what's going on with this teen boy and his mom is worried that he's lying about something, and then you've got
Mhm.
Gwen trying to figure out Robert and trying to figure out the killer. I felt like there was a good amount of stuff weaving together there.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like it was, for the most part, very fast paced. I mean, it was also a really short book, like we've mentioned. Never once bored at all. So, and I felt
Yeah.
like you said, it had different sub stories throughout the whole book that you were never left bored. So, completely agree with you on that. Um, let's see. Do you feel like, I know you said you like try to forget about the book, but did you have high expectations going into this book or low expectations? Did the book exceed your expectations?
Yeah, I would definitely say this exceeded my expectations. I always want to like a book, and I thought I would like it based on selecting it, but I don't know, sometimes I can just be more critical, or if it's like certain authors, I don't know. I just find that I tend to not love things that other people love. So I was a little bit worried going into it, like, oh no, what if I end up hating this book? Or it's probably just going to be like a solid three in the middle, kind of thing for me. But I actually really enjoyed it. And when I first picked it up and I read like the first half of the book in one sitting, that's when I was like, okay, I'm having a good time with this. And it's kind of surprising me that I'm liking
Yeah.
it as much as I am.
I didn't really have like any expectations. I was just kind of going into it like very neutral, but I was also trying to wait till the end of the month to read it because I didn't want to forget all the details because I've done that in other live shows and had to like refresh. But a lot of people were posting on Instagram or DMing me saying that they really loved it. They gave it 4 stars, 5 stars, and things like that. And I was just like, oh, okay. So this book is really good. So I did have a little bit of high expectations after getting all that, but I feel like
Yeah.
this book exceeded my expectations overall.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I'm exactly. Um, so how would you describe the format and the writing style? Do you wish there was anything done differently throughout the book, or wish that the book any changes you have made as far as that?
Um, yeah, I think just generally it was a little bit confusing sometimes with the switching POVs, who you
Mm-hmm.
were reading at times, because it's just like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and that's when it is shifting. So I would have really liked if there were headers of the names of whose POV you were in for each one. I feel like that would have helped you learn who the characters were quicker and understand the distinct storylines that you were following. Also, I didn't like how the guy who's being accused for being the killer, his name is Randall, and then the DA that she's like about to hook up with is named Robert. And when there's two characters with the same first letter in their name, I'm like, I don't know the difference between you. So I wish they would have been named something a
Yeah,
little bit different too.
that was my biggest issue with the book was I feel like it was switching point of views and like I would have to like back up the audio book to figure out like who we're reading through. And I feel like it
Yeah,
did that a few times like in the middle of the chapter too, because I would be like thinking we're
I think
in
it did. Yeah.
and then we'd be in the mother's head. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. And I have to like back up like 2 or 3 minutes in the audio book. But yeah,
Yeah, I think this would be a hard one on
yeah,
audio.
yeah, definitely. Maybe if I did read it physically, I would have had a solid 4 star or even higher. But because I read probably 80% of the book by audio, it was really hard to keep up with what was going on because I would just get distracted by thinking we're in one point of view, but then I have to backtrack to the other point of view. And
Yeah.
I personally like if you're gonna have different point of views that they have their own chapter with a chapter heading.
Yep.
So, but I mean, as far as like the writing style, I think it's really good because I mean, it was a very easy read. I didn't really have to like overthink things that were being, you know, read to me or physically in front of me. So,
Hmm.
I did really enjoy that. Let's see.
Yeah, I liked her writing style too. I was sometimes like just the size of books because of I don't know, just it's a little bit shorter and then it's a shorter book. It just reminded me of like a Kirsten Modulin
Mhm.
book when I got it. And so I was just expecting it to be kind of like her writing, but I liked this better than what I've read from Kirsten Modulin so
Oh,
far. I like the writing style a little better. I've only read one thing though, the arrangement.
which one have you? Oh, the arrangement. I love that one.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that was good. That was also a 4 star.
oh, okay. Put the book on hold at my library. Nice. Even though we're going to spoil it for you, Gwen. I hate when books have characters with the same first letter. Yeah, it's super annoying. For me, I think there was the DA's point of view only once, so I thought it was weird that it included all. She should have left that chapter out and include more of his point of view. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Or have different narrators. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Hmm.
I do like when people or when books have that. That's probably why I gave it 3 stars. I listened to it instead of reading it. No worries. Okay, where am I? So let's get into the characters. How would you describe the characters of the book, and were there any that stood out to you?
Yeah. I liked Gwen the most as a character, the psychiatrist. There's a lot about her. She's just like a morally gray character, and she's questioning her own ethics a lot in the story because she deals with people who intensely want to kill other people most of the time. And so they come to her in confidence to say, like, I want to kill my wife, and I'm trying to figure out how to not kill my wife. Like, I literally actually want to kill her. And she has, like client privileges with them and is trying to balance when are they a danger? When should I report them? And that's a lot of what she struggles with in the story because the first client you're introduced to, John, had wanted to kill his wife for a long time. And then when the story begins, he ends up what looks like killing his wife. Him and his wife both end up dead. And she's like, oh man, should I have known to report that? Like, should I go back and look at my notes? Did I know? Should this have been a problem? So I thought she was really interesting just to look at her that way. And like, you're rooting for her in a way, but you're also kind of like questioning her and her ability to do her job well and her judgment that she's making.
Yeah. I agree. Gwen was probably my favorite character, probably the most interesting character out of everyone because I think it's really interesting that out of everything, her clients are mostly potential murderers, like wanting to kill people. And I think that's just such a unique way to like try to help people. It's such a small window too, as well. But I don't know. I did see something when I was doing a little bit of research on the author's website. There was like a book discussion question, and there was one saying like, if Gwen had children, do you think she would have been able to handle the situation better, or do you think she would still be in the same line of work? Because she doesn't have children, and I didn't even think about that reading the book. So
Yeah.
I didn't know if you had thought about that either.
Yeah. I don't know. She's kind of, you don't know like too much more about her than her work. Like you don't really know much about her personal life and who she is outside of work. So that would be interesting to like add that element in and see a more like personal side of her.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, you just summarized it pretty well. Like you don't really see anything outside of her work or the situation she's in. So, yeah,
Just
interesting.
trying to hook up with Robert.
Yeah. She's got one thing on her mind and it's all about Robert. So speaking of Robert, what did you think of him?
I was a little confused by him at times. You're obviously like supposed to be kind of suspicious of him throughout and wonder like what's going on with him. And eventually you find out what was going on with him the whole time. But sometimes he was just like really mean to her
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere after being really nice. Like there's one line at the end where he says, like she presents an idea to him. She's like, I'm kind of thinking that it might be a person with schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder because it looks like sometimes they're mean and sometimes they're nice for the killer. And he's like, I can't decide if you're stupid or smart. Or like he said something really mean to her in that
Yeah.
part. And I was like, whoa, I thought you were into this girl. Like, why are you being so mean to her? So he was like a little inconsistent for me at times, which I found a little confusing. But yeah, what did you think of him?
Yeah, I mean, definitely he was kind of hot and cold sometimes throughout the book. I mean, like when you first meet him, he's like very hot. He's like trying to, seal the deal, which is kind of interesting once you find out more stuff at the end. But yeah, definitely hot and cold, like trying to like, I don't know. The whole time I was reading about him, I was like, what is his motives? Like, why is he trying to defend this person that's supposedly supposed to be the murderer? Like, what is his motives? And like, why is he trying to get so much involved? I felt like he had a lot of baggage. There was also a part in the book that I wasn't really I don't really understand why it was even mentioned, but about his his ex-wife that
His
was,
wife.
yeah,
Yeah.
she was murdered. And there was that part with the son being locked in, and I was just like,
From the outside.
yeah,
So are you suggesting that he killed his wife in
yeah,
that? Like,
that was
I don't
never
know.
really addressed, and I don't know if maybe that would have like been kind of pointless, but I feel like that was kind of like unanswered, and I think that was one of the questions on that when I posted about asking questions for the live show. If anyone had any questions they wanted us to answer, was about his wife, and I thought that was interesting because I also noticed that, so I wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I forgot about that,
Yeah,
honestly, because it just doesn't go anywhere.
yeah. Well, at first I was like, oh, I must have like missed something when I was listening to the audiobook, but then like other people were saying the same thing, and I was like, oh, okay, so it wasn't just me.
Yeah, I think it just goes nowhere.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think his name was Scott, the one that escaped, and his mother. Any feelings towards them too?
I didn't like Scott at all. I was suspicious of him the whole time. And then his mom, was interesting, I thought, because she's like spying on him, trying to figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
But I don't know. She didn't have like a lot going on with her. But yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't like Scott.
Yeah. I was trying to think, like, would the mom be part of it? Because that would, like, really throw me off. Like, I always think of, like, wild theories and scenarios and stuff like that, but, I mean, didn't really have any feelings towards them. I just hated when it would switch to their point of views throughout the book and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, so we may have kinda already went into this, we may have not, but there are 2 sides of the story, that I thought were pretty interesting, which is Robert and Gwen, who have different careers. One's an attorney, the other one's a psychologist. Which perspectives or careers were you more intrigued by?
I was more interested in Gwen and the psychology side of things. I'm really interested in psychology in
Yeah.
general, so I just gravitated to that more than the legal side of things, I
Mhm.
think. But yeah, I thought that was just interesting how she was approaching from an unbiased way, trying to build a profile of based on all the facts I know about these kidnappings and murders, what does the killer look like and what could be their motives and could be leading them to that way, which I thought was really interesting, and then trying to find, like, who fits those puzzle pieces or does not fit the puzzle
Yeah.
pieces.
Exactly. Same for me. I'm not like a huge legal person in my thrillers, but I felt like this one was done pretty well. Didn't make me like want to DNF it or anything like that. But like you said, like I think it's really interesting that she specializes in like serial killers or potential murderers, and like knows like all the different traits and like puzzle pieces, like you mentioned. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Were there any scenes that appeal to you, like any favorite scenes?
Um, Not really, honestly, nothing, like, crazy. I liked when Gwen and Robert first meet in the bar after John's funeral, just because I liked the atmosphere of that, like, it felt very real of being in the small dive bar and getting, like, a bucket of Bud Light with ice and just, like, sitting in a booth and a man trying to come hit on you and
Yeah.
the jukebox is playing. I like the vibes of that. And then I like when you find out that Scott, once he's being interviewed by the police and he changes his story up finally, and then you're like left on that cliffhanger, and then there's like 5 chapters of the other part of the story before you come back to learn how Scott changed his story and what he was lying
Mhm.
about. So I liked the pacing of that and how that played out.
Yeah. Um, I felt like Gwen kind of made some stupid decisions throughout the book. But I am a sucker for a romance thriller, which I guess you can kind of say this is a romance thriller. It's not my
Yeah.
favorite, but I did like all the romance scenes. I felt like they kind of escalated quickly. And then of course I thought the big reveal at the end was very shocking. Some things I kind of speculated, some of them I didn't. But yeah, I would say obviously the reveal and the romance throughout the book, even though it was not the best.
Yeah, I kinda liked the romance too. I just
Mhm.
liked the tension that it added because the whole time I was suspicious of him too, and so I liked that you're, like, watching her kind of fall for him, but you're like, "Wait, but if you fall for him, he's
Yeah,
gonna be a terrible person."
yeah, terrible person, and also it's like they shouldn't be doing that because like he's like hiring her to help him figure things
Yeah,
out. So it's like, and then like
a little
obviously,
bit forbidden.
yeah, a little forbidden in a way. And then, but again, like he was hot and cold throughout the interactions and stuff like that. So it was like, I
Yeah,
felt like,
once he was mean to her, I was out and I was not rooting for them
yeah,
anymore, but
I felt like, because like I liked the romance in that, but because he was kind of like an asshole to her sometimes and like just really mean and rude, like I was like,
yeah.
uh. Um, So interesting enough, who would you think who was your first suspect, or who is a suspect, or who do you think it was the whole time? That was the Bloody Heart Killer.
My first suspect was Scott, the kid who ran away. I thought he was killing teenage boys, and he was like, "I'll just act like I got abducted and ran away so that they'll never look at me as the killer,"
Yeah.
which is outrageous because why would he do that? But yeah, that was my first suspect. And then I was really suspicious of Robert for a long time, but I figured it wouldn't be him. That was the killer since his son also died. But it was interesting that his son died in a different way from being waterboarded instead of how the other boys died. So it does seem like, I don't know, maybe he did do it. And then you've got the whole thing with like his wife potentially being murdered by him while his son was locked up. Um, And then I also was kind of suspicious of Gwen for a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, she does specialize it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I kept thinking Robert and John, because I think Robert was the obvious answer, but I was like, no, it can't be that obvious, which it wasn't. But John, who is one of her clients, like who is murdered, because of, I don't even know how to go into it without the final spoiler, but I thought it was kind of convenient that he had passed away once Scott, the kid, had escaped. I was like,
See, I
interesting.
didn't even question that at all, which is so unlike me. I
Really?
never even thought about that at all. I think I didn't read them as like happening at the same time because I was so confused with the first chapter moving to the second chapter that I just like read the kid escaping as something that happened months prior and didn't realize it happened at the same time. So it like completely slid under my radar the whole time.
Yeah, I thought it with him like calling her and like she didn't answer and stuff like that. And she was worried about like the cops finding out and stuff. And then with him and his wife, that he was like super paranoid about him cheating on her and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting. And then there was it in the book, it said like it was like self-inflicting stab wounds to himself. So I was like, okay, well, if they already know.
That that was ridiculous to me. I'm like, how are you going to find a woman who died of a heart attack and a man who was stabbed and assume that he
Did it.
found her dead and then stabbed himself?
Yeah.
Why would you not assume it happened the other way?
Yeah. I thought that was kind of bizarre because I was like, if he's that heartbroken, I mean, I don't know, but whatever led him to that decision, I felt like that was kind of odd. But if they already
Mhm.
knew they were self-inflicted wounds, I was like, okay, so it can't be him. But I thought the timing of when Scott escaped was suspicious. And I
Mhm.
thought Robert was just too obvious, but I mean, I did like keep eye on him the whole time. Um, then before we get into like the main spoilers, but do you feel like because there was a lot of sexual tension throughout the book, do you feel like the romance in the book ruined the book or added something to the book? What did you think?
I think it added for me. I also like romance and thrillers sometimes if it's not like oversaturating the
Mhm.
story, I guess. Even sometimes I like it if it's more prevalent. I don't really have any strong feelings one way or the other about it, I guess. But yeah, I liked it. I liked that you're like so afraid of him while also watching her be so vulnerable to him. And you're like, girl, watch your back.
I know. There's a killer on the loose.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think it like ruined the book at all. I feel like it did add something to it and I wasn't expecting it to be a romance thriller. Um
Yeah, me neither.
and like we both said, I liked, romances in my thrillers, you liked it. So, yeah, I felt like it was great. Um okay, and then lastly, the big plot twist, the big reveal. How would you summarize it? What were your thoughts? Were you shocked?
Yes. So the big plot twist is that the Bloody Heart Killer is the husband and wife duo who are dead at the beginning of the book. So her client John and his wife. Um, that he had been a peeping Tom and was like taking these teen boys, and then she was the one like nurturing them. And when she had Scott, he developed like Stockholm syndrome with her basically and was groomed by her and like fell in love with her and thought she was the end all be all. She helped him escape. So that's how he got out. And then John was the woman actually died of a heart attack. That actually happened. And then John was killed by Robert because Robert found out that John was the killer like the day before or something and went to go kill him to get justice for his son. So he took the opportunity to like reach around and self-inflict stab him to kill him. And then I also liked that like the way that Robert finds out that he was connected to John because his son had diabetes and John was the pharmacist and he found out from the toxicology report that his son's insulin levels were like perfect after he had been abducted for a couple months, which is like impossible if you're not getting the insulin, and he saw it was being picked up from the pharmacy, so he thought it was someone else at the pharmacy and then he found out it was John. So I like that both Robert and Gwen were both deceived by John, and they both like had him right under their nose, but they didn't know that he was the killer.
Yeah, I agree. So you said you were shocked about it?
I was a fool to this book.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked because I was like, okay, it's making it look out like Robert's very suspicious. Like he's probably the killer. Don't know why. He's got a lot of baggage and unknown about him. So I thought that was too obvious. So I'm glad it wasn't him, but I'm also glad he had some part of it.
Yeah, me too.
And things like that. I'm glad we found out that it was Robert reaching around and making it look like he did it and things like it. Didn't John also, didn't he have something to do with Brooke's heart attack? Because, or no.
Probably. Gwen thought that he probably did because he was a pharmacist and could figure out which like vitamins or whatever would interfere with her medicine to cause her the heart attack. So that was like suspicious. The other thing that I forgot to mention is why the kid who escaped Scott ends up blaming the high school teacher and saying that the high school teacher was the one who was the killer, is because he was in love with that woman, and that woman had been sexually assaulted by that teacher back when he was her teacher. So he was like, screw you, that's the woman I love, I'm gonna make it look like you were the killer. And she planted the evidence like under his bed, which made it seem like he was.
Yeah. And I love how, like, you know, you have the main reveal. It was the wife and husband duo who was doing everything. But then you also have Robert involved with his motives. And then also the reason why, like, it was just one big web of reveals that I felt like the book did really well at that. So that's why I kind of want to rate it 4 stars. But I just felt like because of the multiple point of views without indication, and I feel like Gwen's actions are like, I don't know.
Yeah. What did you not like about her decisions?
Okay. So she is so smart with like all of these like potential serial killers and all of her clients. Like she knows, like, I feel like she should have seen it coming. And I guess like as the reader, mostly reading through her, like we're not supposed to know it either. But I just feel like she was so smart, but when she wasn't in the office or doing something that had to do with the bloody heart killer, she was making stupid decisions. And I guess like that's like where the romance comes in to kind of distract you from that. I don't know. She just kind of annoyed me, but like I also liked her at the same time. So I think I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4 star because I would recommend this one. But I don't know. She just kind of irked me a little bit with that. So
yeah.
Any other additional thoughts or anything else you wanted to throw out there?
Yes. So something that I was thinking about after like reviewing the plot, what happens and putting all the pieces together, because it is kind of a complex thriller where there's all these different pieces going together that got you to this part. Robert found out who the killer was already. Like he knew it was John.
Oh yeah.
He killed John. And then this other teacher's getting blamed. He's going to defend him. I just was confused, like his motive the whole time. I feel like he overcomplicated things when he could have just like sent a tip, because the way it all comes out is when the house is getting sold and the people go up to the attic and they see like, oh, it was at this person's house, they were the killers. I feel like you should have just sent a tip and said like, hey, go check out the attic of this dude's house and you will quickly find he's the killer, and we don't have to waste our time dilly-dallying with all this like psychological profile and is it this man or is it not this man, if it was all going to be pieced together anyways from the realtor going up into the attic.
Right. Yeah. I remember that part too, because I was like, if he knew all along, like why didn't he just go to the police or, you know, do what he needed to? So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this. I forgot to put that in my notes as well. Let's read some comments. They didn't say the psychiatrists have the craziest families for nothing. Seem to have a hard time following their own advice. Yeah, I agreed. That was funny. In Gwen's office, the 3 different people who had their psychological specialties and would make fun of each other. Yeah, I forgot.
Oh, yeah, there's like a sex therapist, and then she's the killer therapist. I don't remember what the other one was.
I just remember those 2 specifically, but yeah, I do think that was funny that they made fun of each other. Had more issues with Robert's decisions. Yeah, I think we just covered that too. Love the reveal of what actually happened to Scott. I liked that it played on his teenage hormones, etc. Seemed more believable to me than the full-grown adults find themselves in stupid situations. Yeah. I forgot to mention, I also like Stockholm syndrome. Like, I didn't think that's what it was,
Me
but then
too.
when you said it, that made sense. Thought it was Scott at first. Thought it was Scott's father. That would have been a cool twist. Uh, give his father an out. Yeah.
I don't even remember his father being in the book.
Yeah. I mean, he was so far in the background, but that would have been a good twist because you don't really know him as much.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the main focus. Agreed. Ooh. Hey, Elizabeth. Thanks for popping in. I know you probably commented a while ago, but I don't know if you're still here, but thanks for stopping in. When you recap the endings, it sounds crazy about but all the time it was like extremely blue. Yeah, I know. And again, it kind of all like crashed together at one time too, as well. Surprised the book read so quickly that I was along for the ride. Didn't spend too much time theorizing. Yeah, well, I'm always theorizing in my head.
I know it's hard to turn off.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this. This was another Instagram story question. What is the good lie that the title is referencing to? I didn't think about this. Do you
Yeah,
have
that's a
any?
good question.
I mean, the only thing I can think of is like Robert knowing the whole time being the good lie, and I guess like him trying to like correct the wrongs, even though he knew everything.
I
I
don't
don't
know. What is a good lie? What lie? There's not, there's so many lies in this book.
know.
Everybody's lying.
Yeah, I mean everything in this book was one big lie,
Mhm.
honestly. So I like the romance until out of nowhere, nice night together. Robert woke up angry at Gwen. Actually had to go back and reread it. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Like their first night together, she catches him in her office looking at the paperwork, and
Yeah.
that should have been a big red flag, especially since he was speculating that she knew about John being the murderer the whole time. So I didn't even think about that till just now. Interesting. Shocked about the reason Scott blamed the teacher. And then, of course, when he came to kill her.
Yeah, when Robert came with a knife, I was like, "Excuse me, sir. What are you doing?"
Right. Yeah. I really wanted to know more about the relationship between John's wife and Scott. I feel like that, like, if there was like a separate book or like a separate, like, part to the book, like having, like, I guess John and Brooks and like Scott's point of view, that would have been kind of interesting to see.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree because especially at the end, the way that once you find out it was John and the wife who were the killers, the way they're described from whatever POV it is that you're reading it from, read so evil villain character like of just like John's this peeping Tom who's just like taking these teenage boys and he was probably abused by a teenage boy when he was a teenage boy and she just goes and rubs their wounds and then makes them fall in love with her. Like I would have loved to see them feel more like real flawed people and to get their perspectives of like why were they this duo that was
right.
taking these teen boys.
Yeah. And like with Scott kind of falling for Brooke and like falling for her trap and like even though she like ended up passing away and he accuses the teacher that sexually assaulted her, I feel like that would actually be a good story.
Hmm.
But then we would know that they all die and he escaped.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I don't have any other details or questions unless you do.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like we talked about a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to mention, oh, it's right here. I was going to mention next month's live show if anyone is curious about that. So it will be When I Was 10 by Fiona Cummings, and my co-host will be Beth from Beth's All Booked. She picked this one. Again, I have all my co-hosts picking. So yeah, that will be on June 28th, 2022 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my channel. So now's your chance to pick this one up. Got it off Amazon. So but yeah, but thank you so much to Ashley for joining. Glad got to have you again here on my channel for some more reading fun and things like that. So thank you for
Yeah.
joining.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I feel like things popped up. Let's see. really wanted to know more about the relationship between John. Oh, wait, I've already read that one. Just kidding. Thanks for a great book pick, Ashley. Enjoyed this one in the discussion. Yeah, I feel like this was a really good discussion and a really fast book read. So there was a lot to unpack with this one for such a small book. So, all right, guys, I will go ahead. I do have Ashley's channel linked in the description. Make sure you go subscribe, follow her, subscribe here so you can check out more bookish videos. And I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye, y'all.
Bye.